On Labour Lens this week, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association (NECA) laments that 100 million Nigerians live in extreme poverty, want urgent reform to save the economy. Also on the program this week, the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers (NUPENG) and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria (PEGASAN) kick against the sale of refineries and the regulation of the downstream sector. And later on the program, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, insists he got approval to sack the management of NSITF, as former management denies alleged misconduct or misappropriation of funds. The man leading the Electricity Workers Union in Nigeria is my guest on the program. Ellerin, welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. Let's take a moment. It's the 63rd General Meeting of the Organized Private Sector in Nigeria, which was held in strict adherence to the COVID-19 guidelines. Members across the country came together virtually to discuss the world of work. During the conference, the president of the Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association (NECA), Taiwo Adeniyi, says coronavirus pandemic has worsened Nigeria's challenges, with the business environment becoming more unpredictable, unfriendly, and unsustainable. He recommended the urgent need to diversify the country's source of foreign exchange earnings instead of overdependence on oil sector.
We solicit for a new dispensation where the fiscal authorities would strive towards easing off deficit budgeting and enable to maintain deficit within the 3% level threshold stipulated in the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 over the coming years. We urge the federal government to sell off or concession its assets that are lying fallow and moribund.
The Director General of NECA also spoke on the country's rising debt profile, adding that debt-to-revenue ratio is unsustainable.
The cost of governance needs to be looked into. We feel we should not borrow to fund the cost of governance. We should not borrow to continue to service the palate of our political class. Those are non-productive. But when we borrow, they should be for productive ventures like capital investments, infrastructure investment, turn around our power sector, turn around our transportation sectors, and so on and so forth.
Other stakeholders who participated in the virtual conference want urgent government reforms to ensure that more people stay in employment.
The meeting being held today is at a time when we all have had to adjust in the way we do business due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The fact that NECA is holding its AGM today is indeed symbolic of the fact that NECA remains undaunted by the new challenge that COVID-19 has presented.
The arrival of the two ministers of Labour and Employment signals the commencement of the investigative hearing, but the minister starts by demanding that his accuser, James Falike from Lagos State, recuse himself from the investigative hearing. He says allegations made by the lawmaker maligned his person. The lawmakers and the committee think otherwise.
This Auditor General Special Periodic Check Report was treated with levity, especially in areas where the MD and the three executive directors had queries concerning them of payments not authorized by Eastern circulars and their conditions of service.
If you say I made judgments before, using my privilege, Mr. Minister, you also use your privilege as a minister to adjudge the suspended members of NSITF as being guilty. And that is the essence of this investigation.
Mr. Chairman.
I will be free and fair and impartial. I'd like to give everyone the protection they deserve, especially those we have invited.
In the end, the minister agrees to continue, but insists it will be taking the Lagos lawmaker to court. That done, he listed the 75 sins of the sacked team accusing it of awarding 322 contracts worth 3.5 billion naira in one day.
Means I have another alternative. You will meet me in court after this place. In that I made a submission to Mr. President even before the SGF circular. And because the SGF circular came about at the same time that I was getting a presidential approval to institute disciplinary action. And part of the disciplinary action is suspension.
It is submitted that the directive of Mr. President is still in the spirit of fair hearing, wherein it clearly provided that the matter be fully investigated and every allegation against the management team be established before a final determination of the case against them.
About our remunerations, we did not fix it. There is a condition of service over here that we met. Others have been enjoying it before us. And again, what we tried to do was to make sure that it was accordingly ratified.
The Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company, a subsidiary of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, witnessed a protest by the Delta State Ethnic Nationalities Youth Leaders Forum on the 7th of May 2019.
People have worked 10, 15, 18 years without conversion. Why waste money to go and recruit people that does not even have any idea about how to run refineries and continue to enslave our people? It's unacceptable to us.
Today, it appears the problem has not been solved. This time, 4 communities of the Shekiri ethnic nationality have chosen to address the press over what looks like a worsening situation.
The NNPC/WROPC management choose the path of dishonor by laying off our people in the middle of a global crisis and a national lockdown, even after Mr. President directed that no employees in any public establishments should be sacked during this trying time because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Shekiri communities are seeking the intervention of the federal government.
We, the host communities to Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company, are calling on the leadership of the National Assembly to mandate the NNPC management to reinstate our sacked kinsmen.
For the 2 years now, the Ughelli community have not recorded any staff, any permanent staff in Warri Refinery, apart from these support staff. And all the support staff that we have there, they have dropped them. Then employ 1,050 workers. No one will be given to the community.
We have no choice than to align ourselves completely with the position of the National Assembly on this issue, that the workers must be reinstated and regularized. Anything short of that is an invitation to anarchy.
This management that come just stop everybody where everybody is suffering. Our children are suffering. They didn't want to call us back, so we are pleading to the MD.
They want the federal government to discontinue the 2.5 billion naira Ajaokuta Kano Kaduna project of the Nigerian Gas Company until proper negotiation.
Leaders and affiliates of United Liberal Congress of Nigeria, ULC, have returned to Nigerian Liberal Congress, NLC. They broke away 5 years ago in the wake of leadership crisis at the NLC Delegates Conference of March 2015. The return of ULC leaders and affiliates to NLC has ended the crisis and division that weakened the capacity of the organized labor to effectively mobilize and challenge perceived anti-labor or anti-masses policies of government since 2015. President of Nigeria Liberal Congress at the press conference announced the reconciliation of both parties.
Our bond of brotherhood shall never be broken, celebrating the reconciliation between the Nigerian Liberal Congress and the United Liberal Congress. The leadership of the Nigerian Liberal Congress and United Liberal Congress wish to announce to the world that the strain within the rank of organized labor in Nigeria has been resolved. The Nigerian Liberal Congress, led by Comrade Ayuba Waba, has fully reconciled with the United Labour Congress, ably led by Comrade Joe Ajiru. The leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress and the leadership of the United Labour Congress, ULC, kept aglow the light of peaceful resolution towards resolving the misunderstanding as the two leadership resorted to direct discussion aimed at ending the rift. The outcome of this quiet but sustained effort at making peace is the fruit of the reconciliation that we are celebrating today. It is to the credit of the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress and United Labour Congress that the bond of solidarity was never broken, even at the height of misunderstanding. The Nigerian Labour Congress and ULC always cooperated and collaborated in defending Nigerian workers.
Solidarity forward!
With this reconciliation, the leadership and structures of the United Labour Congress have been reintegrated into the Nigerian Liberal Congress. In the reconciliation Memorandum of Understanding signed between the two leadership, the modus operandi for this reintegration and ancillary issues are spelled out to the satisfaction of both parties.
Thank you very much.
It's better for the labor so that you make them more stronger to fight or to confront our common enemy, which are the government and the parastatals or the private sectors who are involved in casual workers. You know, but if you are, before they are divided, but now since they are together, I think it's in the good direction.
Well, we are so happy that at the end of the day, all the reconciliation effort has now paid off, and our unions, our brothers that have gone away for some years, they are now back into the labor center, the NLC, and we are so happy because it's going to be more formidable now at the struggle front. They said in unity lies our strength.
Yes, we are very appreciative of that, because before we are together, we are all one labor union. So there is something, I know some politics or something enter our union, then this bring this gap between us. So now they are back to NLC. We are very happy to our members back to NLC.
Let's expand the conversation on the program with the discussion on the Memorandum of Understanding that ended the 5-year crisis that rocks labor movement in Nigeria. It will be recalled that in the wake of the disputed delegate conference of the Nigerian Liberal Congress, NLC, in March 2015, which produced Ayuba Waba of the Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria as president, Joe Agera of the National Union of Electricity Employees, NUHI, and other affiliates, including the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, alleging fraud in the process. They broke away to form a faction called the United Labour Congress, ULC. Both groups have resolved the dispute and signed a Memorandum of Understanding to merge into one. Joining me on the program for in-depth discussion on this issue is the arrowhead of the agitation, the General Secretary of the Nigerian Union of Electricity Employees, NUHI, Joe Agera, who led the former Labour Group ULC. And now is the current National Deputy President of the Nigerian Liberal Congress. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
A lot has happened in the last 5 years, and that means Nigerian workers could not say that the labor movement was united. Though there were times whereby you were all united towards a common front, especially during the struggle towards the minimum wage. Overall, what would you say is the purpose or the drive towards ensuring that ULC and NLC have actually reconciled and now stands together as one?
Well, thank you very much. I wouldn't know whether we should look at unity as when all of us are in one house, or when we are united on common issues, on common fronts that affect the workers. On common issues that affect the workers, I would say yes, we've remained united while in our separate houses. But if the meaning of unity is that all of us must answer one name, stay in one house, then we have actually united. I wouldn't say that the workers were not serviced within this period. Even when we are together, workers in some sectors, based on the strength of their unions, may still not be serviced unless the centers are called in to attend to such problems. You have industrial unions in the country, maybe up to 50-something now or thereabout. You know, their unions are supposed to take care of them. It's not usually the center. The center takes care of issues when it gets out of the hand of the unions, or when it concerns the nation in general and the affairs of workers across sectors. So to that extent, I would say that yes, there are things we could have done together which were not done, especially at the beginning of the seeming crisis, one of which was the increase in pump price of petroleum products. You know, that we couldn't handle it together because it came at the point we are getting apart. So we didn't have the opportunity of sitting down to look at how it affects everyone. So that one point I will agree. But on other issues since that time, especially on minimum wage and others, we had cause to come together and look at them and give, you know, a united approach to them.
Okay, so moving forward, can you share with us what are the lessons that could be learned following this reconciliation?
Well, if you listen to me the day we were trying to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, clearly I said that if you look at the issues emotionally, you know, we will not reconcile because everybody has his own, you know, pains on what transpired during the election and even thereafter. You know, and then, but if we look at it from our brains and see that the Nigerian worker is bound to suffer, if we look at it from the point of the affront, you know, being launched by capital, if we look at it that capital is, you know, coming together, capital is merging. In the recent past, you know, in Nigeria, you see Diamond Bank merging with Access Bank, and many other mergers locally and internationally, you know, and when they do this, they get stronger and they roll it over the unions, they roll it over the workers. So there is the need, urgent need for labor to get united, you know, to engage our social partners, especially, you know, in anticipation of the fallout of the post-COVID-19 pandemic affairs on the workers, because the workers are the worst hit, whether workers in the formal sector or the informal sector. A lot is happening, and we found it expedient for us to put our house in order to fight this common cause.
We are from the organized private sector in terms of the workers' session, and we also know that we have the public service unions. Looking at the issues that the country workers are faced with in the country, what collaborative efforts do you think these two sets of workers can have at this point in time to promote decent work, of course?
Yeah, for a long time we have been coming together. You know, if you watch the composition of the NLC, you discover that it includes those in the formal and those in the private sector. You know, private and public sector has dominated the labor movement in Nigeria. But if you look at the world of work currently, you will notice that the informal sector, you know, is not categorized under the private and public sector. And the informal sector constitutes a greater percentage of the workforce. And that is one thing we try to do in the United Labour Congress, and the people that have moved with us now, you know, to the NLC. You see people like barbers, cosmetologists, you know, and some other informal workers, you know, traditional whatever practices, non-governmental organizations.
So what would be your position towards the informal set of workers being incorporated into the Nigerian Liberal Congress?
That's why we are coming together, to fashion a position for them. If you watch, their businesses are worst hit, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. Now there's need for government to come up with a special fund to rejig that sector. Very, very important, because some of them they don't depend on salary, either from the private or public sector. But some of them have businesses which they are doing with 100,000, 200,000, 50,000. That government must come up with some intervention fund to make sure that these people, those of them who are genuine, who are involved in this informal sector, they benefit from it to restart their businesses. So those are the areas, those are part of the programs we want to come up, to take care of this sector, because they constitute a larger majority, of when you classify the workers in the country.
Recently, the Nigerian Liberal Congress, the Nigerian Civil Service Union actually released a statement saying that they want to embark on an industrial action following the issue of the non-implementation of the national minimum wage. What would be your take on this?
Yeah, the national minimum wage enjoyed joint authorship, with the unions in the public and the private sector that have now come together to the NLC. So, in fact, in the battle for the implementation of the new minimum wage, it will not be the battle for the Civil Service Union alone. All of us that were signatories, all the unions that were signatories, all the unions in the country would join hands to make sure that the minimum wage is implemented, whether in the state civil service, whether in the public sector, whether in the private sector. Employers that are covered by the Minimum Wage Act must implement it. I think we had an initial setback on the issue of COVID-19, but we are trying to fashion out a way of engaging these same employers without a crowd. And that, I think, before long, we'll perfect that policy.
Your union, the National Union of Electricity Employees, recently also complained about some workers that were locked up in Ughelli Power Plant. What's the update on this?
Well, the management there have been trying to subvert the union for a very long time, and it has been an ongoing struggle there. But when they tried that and we came up with an ultimatum, they had to even do balloting there. After the balloting, we discovered that the workers overwhelmingly insisted that the gate must be opened. I think the voting was about 240 something or 50 something in support, and with incentives attached to the non-opening of the gate, and other palliatives, it was 249 over about 40 something or 50 something. So the workers spoke, and as luckily enough, we had a visual meeting with the Ministry of Labor, who equally intervened, and the agreements will be out in the next few days for the public to see.
So what's the take home for this? Is it that these workers are still locked up at the power plant?
Yeah, the gate has been opened, but with some stringent measures, in the name of trying to avoid spread of COVID-19.
Moving forward from this and using this case as an example, I am aware that there are a lot of companies that actually have put workers under some measures that has been against the rights of workers. Moving forward, what would be your recommendations in the world of work, especially when it has to do with the mental health of workers?
Well, it should not be employment laws alone. The meaning of arresting people, detaining people, and restricting the movement of people. In clear terms, in terms of national and international laws, in terms of criminal laws, those ones are against the law. But I think that such workers should speak out, like in the case of Ughelli, when the workers, cried out, and we had to move into that matter. So it is not enough to say that workers are restricted. I think such workers should cry out. And in industrial relations, that's what we call power relations. If management can close their eyes and do that, the unions can equally respond in like terms. So wherever such is happening, it is illegal. And I think if it is illegal, we are going to challenge it and we're going to face it to make sure that workers in such sectors or such subsectors are liberated. That is our duty. That is our primary responsibility. There's no negotiation about that.
Finally, going back to the theme of discourse, which is the new rebirth of NLC and the unity amongst labor unions to ensure a united workforce. Can you state categorically what workers should expect from the Nigerian Liberal Congress moving forward?
Well, I think we are coming together with various strengths. You know, before now, you will agree with me that the NLC was made up of some unions, and the USC was made up of some unions. And what we are seeing now is a combination of such unions. With them, we can take some measures. I can tell you from here that even with COVID-19, you know, three of the unions coming back to the NLC here can just take an action and deal with any situation concerned. We don't need to move all the workers out in the electricity sector to paralyze any sector or any section or any state. We don't need to move even people out from a petroleum sector. We don't need to move any worker out to get any of the states or companies that are behaving abnormally to get them to think. We don't need to move any worker out, you know, to move in the aviation sector to make sure that any state is cut off from the rest of the country, COVID-19 or not. Trying to bring our strength together to see, despite the imperfections in our new movement, to see how better to serve the workers, notwithstanding the effect of COVID-19. Because some employers have now leveraged on the lockdown, you know, to convert it to lock up, to convert it to, you know, dealing with the workers, to convert it to sack of workers. And we have to move with the new dynamics to equally engage them without violating the COVID-19 laws.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program. There is a popular saying that united workers cannot be defeated. For many years, Nigerian workers and the founding fathers of NLC yearned for a united labor front. Many workers hope that the parties will be more committed to pursuing a reinvigorated action in defense and protection of the rights and welfare of Nigerian workers. That's the much we can take on this edition of the program. Join us next week as we continue to discuss labor matters in the face of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. I am Sharon Ijason. Always remember that labor creates wealth.